Hi, I'm Hayley Victoria and welcome back to my crime and policing channel. In today's session we're going slightly off-piste because it's the 5th of November. Yes! So we are not talking about forensics and stuff as such today. We're going to look at history, obviously, and crime, my two favourite things. And it's November the 5th, as I've mentioned, which is Bonfire Night here in the UK. What's that, you may ask? If you're not from the UK, you might think, what in the Wicker Man is happening here, right? Because we get these big old piles of wood, we check for hedgehogs and cats underneath it, we set fire to it, and then we throw a figure of a man on top of it, like a life-size figure of him. Sometimes we even parade him down the street before we chuck him on the fire. We all celebrate, yay, have fireworks, a couple of beers, you know, candy apples and stuff like that. It's a big celebration in England. It does sound weird, I get that. Why do we do this? Well, it's because of this guy. Actually, Guy Fawkes. So Guy Fawkes is, for some reason, the one we all focus on. But, guys, there were more than just him involved in this. I'm talking about the Gunpowder plot, also known as the Jesuit treason or the Gunpowder treason and plot thing. There's a little song as well. I'll sing it at the end. So, Guy Fawkes is kind of being remembered as this figure of the person who created this plot, but it wasn't just him, and it actually wasn't him who started it. It was another guy called Robert Katesby. So we're going back to 1605. 1605 in Britain was a bit messy, right? So in 1603, Queen Elizabeth I she died, and she was replaced on the throne by King James I, who was King James VI, I believe, of Scotland. So finally Scotland and England were united. Yay! So Elizabeth I hated Catholics. Like, she really hated Catholics. And if you went against the Queen, you were charged with high treason, and against her God, heresy as well, depending on what you were doing. Sorry, witches. So Queen Elizabeth, she hated Catholics. And the punishment for going against the Queen was, if you were a female, you got burned to the stake. Thank you. Or beheaded. Nice. And if you were male, you were hung, drawn and quartered. What is that, I hear you ask? And this makes Game of Thrones sound like the Care Bears, right? So they'd be hung within an inch of their lives. They'd be disemboweled. They'd have their genitalia chopped off. Then they'd be split into 4 pieces, either by horses pulling them, or by chopping them up. Then there'd be pieces of you placed around prominent places in London to show people what not to do. Welcome to medieval monarchies. Anyway, right, so what happened if you went against a queen? You're a tree. So King James I was in power, and the English Catholics were really excited about this because King James's own mum, Mary Queen of Scots, had been a Catholic. She'd also been beheaded by Queen Elizabeth. Hey! Right, so King James is in power because Queen Elizabeth had no heirs, so King James was in power. Well done. But the English Catholics were expecting him to be a bit more tolerant of them, but they didn't find that he was, or at least not quick enough. So Robert Katesby and some of his chums created a plot to get rid of him. They were going to get him off the throne and instead put his 9-year-old daughter on the throne, and kind of like coach her in the ways of being a great Catholic monarch. Yeah, foolproof, they thought. Really, guys? Anyway, so they decided they were going to blow him up. What? And for religious purposes. We don't learn a lot, do we? So it's in 2021, people are still doing that stuff. Let's have a look at, I'm just going to read something for you, bear with me, because I want to make sure I get the wording right. So I'm going to have a quick look at the CPS now. If you can't see me, I'm scrolling. Just see me scrolling. So the CPS defined terrorism as the use or threat of action, both in and outside of the UK, designed to influence any international government organisation or to intimidate the public. It must also be for the purpose of advancing a political, religious, racial or ideological cause. So they were committing a massive terrorist plot. That's what they were doing. So Robert Katesby enlisted a guy called Thomas Percy. Now Thomas Percy was a big deal in London and in England. Like, these people had bank. They were very wealthy Catholics who didn't practice in front of people because, you know, they were allowed. So Thomas Percy and Robert Katesby started plotting what they were going to do, and they said they were going to blow him up, as I mentioned. They also enlisted some others, Thomas Winter and John Wright. There's quite a lot of names here. I'll put a picture up. So these guys all started figuring out what they were going to do, and they rented a house adjacent to the House of Lords, and they started tunneling through the cellar. They're like, yeah, we'll tunnel through, put loads of stuff in and blow them all up. Excellent idea. And then, as luck would have it, right, the cellar directly underneath the House of Lords became available to hire. This is too good to be true. It's too easy. They then filled it with a shed load of gunpowder and firewood and coal. Okay, cool. But before they filled it up, actually, before they got the cellar, Robert Katesby, Thomas Percy, Thomas Winter and John Wright were trying to think of a peaceful way to sort this out. So they sent Thomas Winter over to Spain, a place called Frias, I think that's how you pronounce it, to meet with the Duke there. Because that Duke was trying to negotiate peace between England and Spain. And they were like, can you help us out with this? You know, we want to get Catholicism back in England, what can we do, blah, blah, blah. But the Duke was it's like, yeah, we'll help you, yeah. And Thomas Winter found it just like vain promises. It was getting nowhere. And he met a guy called Fawkes, Guido Fawkes, who was a bit of a rebel. And they knew that he would, you know, put himself in precarious situations for the cause. So they took him back to Britain and he joined their merry band. And then they filled up this cellar with a lot of explosives. All this stuff happened over a period of a couple of years. So this was ready to go, literally, by May of the year of 1905. We've been plotting since 1603. We've been plotting since 1603. It was ready by 1605. It takes a long time to do stuff in them days. You have to get boats and all sorts. So anyway, yeah, it was ready to go. May. They're like, cool. We're not going to blow it up until November, because November, the 5th, they decided for, was the day that Parliament officially opened. So they've got a lot of gunpowder over there for a long time. And in that time, they got a bit sloppy and a bit greedy. And they started recruited a lot more people, like about 10 other people, including a couple of priests, right? One of them was called Francis Tresham. One of Winter's brothers joined in. It was a big affair. Quite a lot of people joined in. And that's when things went a bit wrong for this group of terrorists, or would-be terrorists. So as time grew closer, people started to feel a little bit weird. And some of them were like, you know what? Some of our friends and family members are going to be there, because these are all well-to-do people in this group. And they were like, they went to Katesby and they were like, can we warn some people that we care about not to be there? Katesby was like, nah, sorry. Well, someone did. I'm not going to point fingers, Tresham, but somebody, Tresham, definitely told someone Tresham. And that was Lord Monteagle, who was told. He was sent an anonymous letter by Tresham. We still don't know who wrote it, Tresham, telling him not to go in there, because Lord Monteagle was a brother-in-law of Tresham. It was definitely Tresham, wasn't it, right? I mean, we don't know officially, definitely him. And funnily enough, he was the only one who wasn't hung, drawn and quartered. Go on that in a bit. So, I'll give away the spoiler alert. So, yeah, Lord Monteagle got this letter from somebody, we don't know who it is, and he went straight to Whitehall and told Robert Cecil and some other ministers who were there, and were like, oh, this letter saying don't go to Parliament because of this, this and this. And they were like, oh, okay. One of the servants, however, heard him, and he knew the jig was up. 27th of October, he told Thomas Winter, he's like, they know what's going to happen. Thomas Winter appealed to Katesby, he's like, Rob, Bobby, we need to stop because they know. And he's like, Robert Katesby's a bit full of himself, total narcissist, right? He's like, oh, I'll just ask Guy what's happening down there. So, hey, Guy, what's happening down cellars? And he's like, no. Cool. So he thinks that no one's taken this letter seriously. He thinks he's got away with it. So he carries on with his plan. What an idiot, right? So King James I gets hold of this letter. Right, that's interesting, he thinks. He sends one of his mates downstairs to have a look, Thomas Howard, the Earl of Sussex, and he's like, who are you? Coming across Guy Fawkes. And Guy Fawkes is like, Guy Fawkes, what are you doing down here? No. Whose cellar is that? Thomas Percy's? Just collecting some firewood. He was like, okay, bye, thinking this is the sketchiest thing I've ever seen. So then there's a man called Nivet. This is their surname. That's like, hi, I'm Nivet. And he goes down. They obviously runs upstairs and is like, oh, King James. Something's sus going on downstairs. And they know Thomas Percy's name. They're like, ding, ding, ding. Okay, we know Thomas Percy. What? It's a weird man downstairs at midnight. What? Because it was midnight, by the way. They send down Nivet and all his men, and they find Guy Fawkes. And he's like, oh, shit. They also find loads of gunpowder. Oh dear. They arrest him, obviously. They torture him, obviously. And he gives up the names of everybody else involved. And he confesses to what they were going to do. Oh dear. So, as the next few days, all the conspirators were either killed or they were captured and they were sentenced to death for treason, high treason. So there they all are. 2 priests escaped, by the way. So there they all are, waiting for the gallows for their punishment. Guy Fawkes jumps off the ladder and kills himself. Smooth move. Nobody wants to go through that. And they're all hung to one a quarter, parade around the streets, etc, etc, etc. Apart from Tresham. It's funny, isn't it? I don't know if it's Tresham or Tresham, by the way. Apart from him. But who wrote the letter? Don't know. He didn't. It was in the Tower of London, though, kept in the Tower of London. And unfortunately for him, he died a very painful death. He got a UTI, so a urinary tract infection, and died of that. Ouch. In December of that year. But every year, on November the 5th, in Britain, we parade an effigy of conspirator Guy Fawkes and chuck him on a burning fire. The rest of them kind of disappeared into obscurity, which shows you that nothing good comes from terrorism, guys. So yeah, thank you for watching. I hope this has been interesting for some of you. It might just be a bit boring. But anyway, yeah, so that was the gunpowder plot, terrorist plot in Britain in 1605. Since then, we've been celebrating the fact that it didn't work, and that, you know, nobody was killed. Which is also, well, apart from bad guys. Oops. Yeah, so we celebrate this every year. You're welcome to celebrate with us. It's a great evening, and, you know, who doesn't like a bonfire in winter? Have an amazing celebration, and stay safe. Don't commit any crimes. See you later.